Late Monday evening, a severe hailstorm hit Rome, surprised residents and covered the ancient streets and the capital with a layer of ice. The sudden storm turned into eternal city-wide, disrupting traffic, damaged cars and causing flash flooding in several areas. Within the minutes, the sky darkened in the sound of hailstorm, sound the size of a golf ball, echoing across rooftops, the courtyard. Video posted on social media showed streams of water following down the Spanish steps and vacation's marble courtyard glistening under the layer of ice. It was like an apocalypse, said Elena Rossi, owner a shop near Piazza Venezia. The hail was so heavy it broke part of our glass canopy. People were running to cover. Emergency services were quickly overwhelmed, responded to more than 400 calls across the city about flooding, fallen trees and damaged cars. Several metro stations were temporarily closed due to water ingress, and bases were forced to reroute through the less affected areas. The storm also affected key landmarks. Parts of Trastevere and Ostiense were left without power, and several hours where lighting lit up the sky above the Colosseum and St. Basilica, creating dramatic and frightening scenes.
Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso. Porta via il negozio qua, adesso porta via macchine e tutto.
Madre di Dio. Su, che desastre. Mira.
Meteorologists from Italy's Severe Protection Agency described the storm as one of the strongest in recent years. The combination of warm, moist air from the Mediterranean and a cold front from the north caused extensive instability, explained meteorologist Marco De Santis. Such supercell systems are becoming more frequent due to climate change. Authorities urged residents to stay indoors and avoid flood streets, warning to even more severe weather expected in the end of weekend. Cleanup efforts are underway, with the city worker clearing debris and hail from clogged storm drains. Major Roberto Gilardi called the situation as a wake-up call for climate change preparedness. Rome is not used to such violent weather, he said. We must adapt to infrastructure and protect cities to preserve and heritage. On Tuesday afternoon, Rome experienced a shocking weather change. Heavy hail fell on the city, leaving an instant cover in ice and chaos. The warm and humid day quickly turned into sin and destruction as dark cloud gathered over the capital without warning. Released hailstorm the size of walnuts with pelted cars, roofs and pedestrians. Within the minutes, the city's cobbled streets turned into ice rivers, and ambulances series broke through the narrow valley and Trastevere and Tuscany. Locals took refuge in cafes, shops and metro station while the storm raged for nearly an hour. It was terrible, said Gianni Moretti, a taxi driver who was cut off in the storm. The hail was so heavy and I could see route. I thought the white ship would break. The hail caused significant damage to the white ship, damaged cars and flooding low-lying area. In some parts of Villa Appia Nola, parked cars were flooded up to their doors, and a section of Rome metro lines A and B were temporarily closed due to water ingress. Firefighters received more than 500 emergency calls, including the rescue of people from the stuck cars and flooded basements. Power outage were reported in Ostia, said Giovanni, and a motor rail where fallen branches and lightning struck damaged power lines. Meteorologists from Arpa, Lizzo, confirmed from the event was caused by explosion mixture from warm Mediterranean air colliding with a cold northern front. Such extreme hailstorms were previously rare in central Italy, said Dr. Gianni Bellini, a climatologist. But we are seeing a clear increase in the frequency and intensity, a direct signal of climate warning. The hailstorms did not spar the city landmark. Hail accumulated near the Colosseum, tuning the ants dance amplifier with the surreal white ring with the tourist soul shoulders under the 8. St. Peter's Square glistened with the ice, and drainage system could not cope with the flood, inundating parts and vacation. Yesterday, Rome was hit by unexpected and violent hailstorm that transformed its street square in the ancient monument into a surreal winter scene. In a matter of minutes, dark clouds unleashed hailstorm the size of a golf ball, torrential rain, strong winds forced residents to seek shelter. It was like a scene from a movie, but a horrible rare, and said Luca Bianchi, who filmed hailstorm, bridged off cars near Piazza Nova. People were running for cars and the cars were damaged before anyone could reach. The storm caused widespread flooding with the water pouring down Via del Corso and the side streets near Trastevere. Cars were submerged, basements flooding, and several trees were uprooted. Firefighters were reported more than 600 emergency calls, regional blocked cars following the bruising power outage. The storm did not spur Rome's historic landmark. The Colosseum and Trevi Fountain were partly covered in hail, and St. Peter's Square suffered minor flooding. Tourists and local sewage shelter were filmed video in the storm with it quickly went viral. Meteorologists explained the storm as a supercell phenomenon caused by the warm Mediterranean air colliding with a cold northern front. This is type of extreme weather event conditions that are becoming more frequent due to the climate change, said Dr. Giulia Ferraro of the Italian Meteorological Agency. Authority warning that there could be more unstable weather in the coming days and urged residents to avoid travel unless necessary. Major Roberto Giuliani promised quick cleanup and infrastructure improvement to better protect city. Social media was flooded with the images of streets covered in hail, broken widespread, and flooded alleys. Stark a reminder whether even cities of thousands years of history are vulnerable of the sudden fury of nature. Venice, the city of water, was forced yet another violent test of survival. The powerful storm system swept across northern Italy this week, striking Venice with a torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and dramatic flooding that would reinforce over the city's long-term future. Overnight, thunder echoed across the lagoon with wind gusts tapping 110 km/h, battering the ancient city. The down water level had stretched to 115 centimeters, high enough to submerge much of St. Mark Square and spill into historic buildings. It was a chaos, said resident Marco de Alisa. The wind was howling and the water was everywhere. We couldn't ever open our door. Authority activated the most flood barrier system, the multi-billion-euro defense designed to protect Venice from high tides. But even this was engineering marvel struggling to contain the ferocity of the storm. Engineers confirmed that several guests shattered minor malfunction, allowing water to seep into vulnerable zone. Local businesses are counting heavy losers. Coffee, art, galleries, and luxury hotels along the Grand Canal were flooded with the hour. A ferocious hailstorm hit Sicily on a Wednesday. City residents and tourists feeling the streets were transformed into the city torrents. Cities including Palermo, Catania and Messina facing torrential rain hailstorms up to golf ball size and a gale strong enough to apron trees and damaged rooftop. Local eyewitness Gianni Russo described the scene. It was a chaos, hail bouncing off cars, warning the rise in a minute. People were running to cover and noise were left under multiple tender. Emergency service reported over 400 calls for the rapid motorists, fallen branches and damaged property. Several small rivers overflowed, forcing evacuation in low-light districts. Historic neighborhoods were not spared. Streets in Palermo town were flooded with iconic squares like Pisa Petronia and other particularly submerged. Hail pelted centuries-old buildings, leaving shattered roof tiles and dented hulks in the wake. Agriculture in Sicily took a severe hit. Vineyards, olive groves, and citrus orange in Catania and Saragossa provinces suffered massive losers. Farmer Luca Bianchi said. said, "Our entire hard disk is destroyed in a matter of minutes. The hail was relentless." Late Tuesday night, a sudden hailstorm hit Rome, shocking the eternal city, and marble streets and historic squares were covered in ice. Residents described the storm as unexpected and terrified, with the hailstorm raged in the sides from the marble of golf balls, smashed cars, breaking windows and damaged roofs. Central areas such as Trastevere, Piazza Venezia and Termini were hardest hit, with the later levels rising rapidly in low-lying areas. Passengers were stranded on bases in cars, while residents sought shelters. "It was like a winter storm in the middle of summer," said Luca De Santis, owner of cafe near Colosseum. "Customers ran into the cafe screaming as hailstorms tore our umbrellas to pieces." The Italian fire service Valle de Fuoco received more than 300 emergency calls about flooded streets, fallen trees and damaged cars. Several metro stations, including Barbary and Repubblica, were temporarily closed due to water inside the tunnels. Authorities confirmed that at least 10 people suffered minor injuries after being hit by hail or slippery and ice sidewalks. Violent storm struck Rome late Monday, transforming the Italy capital into a scene of chaos rarely widespread in the recent years. Within the minute, sky turned pitch black and the torrential rain, a gale force wind, swept across the city, uprooted trees, flooded major roads, and caused widespread blackout. According to the Italian Civil Protection Department, the storm formed over the Tyrrhenian Sea before slamming into the Lazio with unprecedented intensity. "It was like a midday," said local resident Francesca Bianchi, described how lightning illuminated the street's landmark from the Colosseum to St. Basilica, and thunder echoed across the hills. Public transport was heavily disrupted. Metro Lane A was partially closed due to flooded tunnels, while firefighters responded to more than 300 emergency calls for trapped motorists and fallen debris. Rome history, where the also turned into Russian river submerged cars on the window. On Tuesday evening, a powerful thunderstorm swept across Rome, Italy, bringing torrential rain, stormy winds and lightning, and plunging the capital into chaos. In a matter of minutes, the calm late summer sky turned stormy, and torrential rain pouring down the historic streets caused sudden flooding, traffic paralyzing, and widespread power outage. Widespread described the storm as apocalyptic. Cars were stuck on flooded streets around the Villa Appia and Piazza Venezia. The several metro lines were forced to close due to flooding. "I saw manhole covers being blown by the pre-show," said Giulia De Santis, owner of shop near Termini station. "The water flooded the shops faster than could back the door." Villa de Fuoco, the Italian Fire and Rescue Service reported more than 400 emergency calls across the capital. Trees were uprooted, debris littered major roads, and parts of roofs were blown by the strong gusts of winds. In the Trastevere, firefighters rescued severe residents who were trapped to their cars, and the weather rose to dangerous levels. A meteorological from the Italian Air Force Meteorological Service analyzed this extreme weather as resulting from the unusual collisions between warm Mediterranean air and the cold front moving south from northern Europe. He noted that climate change is increasingly the frequency of such patterns. Forecaster Luca Perry stated, intense convecting activity is occurring frequently, warning that storm could hit neighboring areas over the next few days. The hailstorm also caused delays at Rome Flamenco airport, with several incoming flights temporarily diverted. City workers that began clearing clothing drain and removing debris to prevent further flooding. As more rain was forecast overnight, experts noted that this storm severe a stark reminder of Italy's vulnerability to rapidly intensify, while the patterns highlighted the growing impact of climate change to southern Europe. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm was part of the weather system moving across central city, Italy, where warm Mediterranean air collided vitally with a cold front from the northern Europe. It was an explosive mix, said meteorologist Andrea Bianchi. The sudden temperature drop triggered intense convection, prompting hail and unusual sights of this time of year. Shops and restaurants in Trastevere and accompanied forest sacred flood with outdoor treacherous terraces and markets still destroyed. Several hospitals reported minor injuries, mostly from the people sliding over brain-stuck and fallen debris. It lasted barely 20 minutes, said cafe owner Aliza Romano, but the damages caused local like hurricane airspace. The storm aftermath left Rome's historic landmarks corroded in ice and rail haunting sites. Tourists shaped photos to Colosseum and Spanish steps, gilding the under street lines, and the city crews walked through the night to clear debris and restore normal traffic. Experts warned that extreme weather like this could become more frequent. Mediterranean storms are intensified due to climate change, said climatologist Dr. Lorenzo Conti. Rome may see more violent hail and flash flood in the recent heat. As a calm returned by morning, Romans awoke the melted hail and the city shaking the yet another reminder to nature growing unpredictability. Italy. A sudden massive hailstorm has caused extensive damage across Italy, paralyzing major cities and devastated vast agriculture areas. This extreme weather struck late Monday night, battered region from Lombardy to Tuscany, with the hailstones the size of a golf ball and a wind exceeded 100 km per hour. It left a trail of destruction, flooding and chaos. Residents in Milan, Bologna and Parma reported scenes of panic in the dark storm cloud relating in an eerily sunlight with minutes. It was followed by a deferring onslaught, hail smashed roofs, shattered car windows and tearing streets and the frozen rivers. It sounded like an explosion, said Franza Bianchi, a shop owner in the Milan. The hailstorm hit so hard they bent to mental separate inward. Fire department across northern Italy received over 2,000 emergency calls, reported to trapped drivers and clearing roads buried under the layer of ice. Power lines shattered trees and uprooted an entire region, plunged into darkness overnight. Train services were halted in multiple areas, while the Milan Malnesa Airport and Bologna Guglielmo Marconi Airport experienced a delay in cancellation due to heavy hail estimated on runways. Businesses and restaurants suffered significant losers as water and ice flooding basements and outdoor terraces. The city farmed landmarks from the Colosseum to Pisa Novara, the brilliantly unrecognized shady streets of hail. Agriculture areas surrounding Rome also reported heavy damage. Farmers in Lazio said crops and grapes, olives and artichokes were devastated. Climatologists warned that such sudden and destructive storms are becoming more common across southern Europe due to climate change. The Mediterranean basin is heating faster than the global average, explained Dr. Elena Rossi of Italy National Meteorological Institute. This increases the energy available to violent thunderstorms. As cleanup operations continue, the city faces millions in damage and the stark warning about the vulnerable to extreme weather. The storm throughout lessons test 1 hour will likely be remembered as one of Rome's most severe hail events in the decades. Rome came to a sudden halt after a severe hailstorm swept through the city, flooding the streets, paralyzing traffic, and shocking residents with the scale of the event. In the matter of minutes, large hailstones covered squares and boulevards, transformed parts of the Italian capital into winter scenes in the middle of autumn. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused by the collisions of the most Mediterranean air with the approaching cold front, which caused severe thunderstorms capable of producing hailstones up to 4 centimeters in diameter. The storm in both the city center of the surrounding suburbs damaged cars, broke windows, and blocked drainage systems. Public transport was severely disrupted. Buses were stuck in flooding underpasses, and trams stopped because the tracks were covered in ice. Passengers described it chaotic scenes. It was like driving balls. To had to stop and wait because it was impossible to see the road, said Marco, local taxi driver. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls. A rescue driver stuck in rising waters to help in precedent to the injured after slipping in the sidewalks, make slippery by hail. The Italian capital, more accustomed by scrolling heat wave, stumbled after exploding hailstorm hit Rome, covering the streets with ice, destroying cars and causing chaos throughout the entire city. What began the heavy rain suddenly intensified into the torrent and hailstorm, larger than the golf ball battering the city at nearly half an hour. When it means major landmarks such as the Colosseum and Spanish Steps and the Villa de Corso was surrounded by the river of ice while traffic came to complete standstill. It was a winter had arrived violent incident, said Luca Romano, who abandoned her car near the Piazza Venezia. The hailstorm broke glass through the roof when going to collapse. Emergency hotline were overwhelmed and firefighters rushed to more than 500 incidents across the capital. Foreign streets crushed vehicles, safe ground windows shattered, and several subway stations were flooded. At least 40 people were treated to injuries, mainly caused by broken glass and slippery falls. Hospitals in Trastevere and St reported overcrowded emergency rooms. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed her condolences and promised immediate government support. "We will not leave Sicily alone with this tragedy." The flood also caused significant economic damage. Vineyards, citrus grove, and olive farms are blackboard on Sicily economy, were flooded, and agriculture groups warned of millions in losers. Businesses in the historic center of Palermo may be closed for the weeks and a half month. The Italian Meteorological Service has linked in disaster to the Mediterranean and Mediterranean cyclones similar similar to the triple storm, since when the climate change is exacerbating such phenomena as a warning sea contributing to heavier rains and the violent storm. Residents clearing debris are in shock. Standing outside the damaged barrier, Rosa County said, "Sicily is used to the hardship, but this something else. We cannot fight this our own." Sicily was hit a severe storm that swept across the island overnight, causing torrential rain, storms, winds, and widespread flooding. Palermo, Catania, and several smaller towns were worst affected, with the streets turned into raging rivers, and entire neighborhoods were left without power. Residents reported panic as the water flooded historic city center. It was terrible. In a matter of minutes, the water rose above the car's doors. We had to abandon the vehicles, said Salvatore Russo, the driver from Palermo. Emergency service carried out dozens of rescue operations, including rescuers, families trapped in their homes, and motorists stuck in the underpasses. Authority temporarily closed schools and government offices in several municipalities as prediction. The Sicily Civil Protection Agency declared a highest level of water alert. At least one hospital of Catania reported flooding in the lower floors, forcing staff and relocate pedant. The storm also dealt a serious blow to agriculture, damaging olive groves, citrus, orange, and vineyards, were left to bloodborne the island economy. Farmers estimated to damage of millions of euros, further complicating the situation in a region that already struggled with the drought to binging of a year. Flights to and from Palermo to Catania airports were delayed and cancelled, and ferry service between Sicily and mainland Italy was suspended to several hours due to rush seas. Meteorologists are linking this storm to a powerful Mediterranean cyclone, sometimes called the Medican, from the form to the warm seawater full intense weather system. Experts warn that the climate change is making such events more frequent and destructive. The president of the Sicily region promised rapid assistance to the affected communities, stretching the urgent need to strategic flood protection. This storm has once again demonstrated the vulnerability our island in us. We must do decisively to protect life and livelihood, he said. The Sicilian city of Palermo is trying to recover after the violent storm that caused chaos throughout the region, bringing record rainfall, destructive winds, and widespread flooding. In a matter of hours, almost a month of worst of rainfall caused sweat to the overflow and the streets flood. Footage from the city shows cars floating like toys, buses stuck in the middle on the roads, and fire-ridden residents seek refuge in the rooftop. The water rose so quickly that we barely had time to escape, said Giovanni Russo, whose family was rescued to firefighters from their flooded apartment. At least 5 people were killed and dozens were injured. More than 200 residents were evacuated from their homes, and thousands were left without power due to damaged power lines caused by palm trees and lightning strikes. The historic center of Palermo, known for the architecture and the live market, was ill emptied, businesses closed to tourists at the day hotels. Hospitals are overwhelmed, treating cases to hypothermia, injuries and shock. Emergency shelters have been set up in the school and community halls to accommodate families who have lost their homes. The major called in a worst storm in history, and their request urged assistance to the native level. In addition to Palermo rural area, the Sicily were also affected. Vineyard, olive farms, and a citrus orange which are vital to the island economy were destroyed, rising concerns about the significant loser and agriculture. Transport link was paralyzed. Palermo airport suspended flights to several hours, and a ferry rail service were suspended due to flooding and landslides. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the collisions of warm Mediterranean waters with a cold front, increasingly common phenomenon linking to climate change. Italian Civil Protection Agency warning that Sicily is now one of the regions in Europe most vulnerable to extreme weather conditions. culture representative warned that the addition of psychological storm urged me to adapt to climate change were needed to prevent Sicily identified to tourist economy. This is a symbol act to unity in the consulate across the Sicily, run by some territory as known Tuesday, a moment of silence of victims is signs strange to serious. Sicily and no stranger to hardship. From the earthquake to volcanic eruption they have endured a lot, but this storm, many say, was different, not just a natural disaster but climate warning should the wind and the water.
Guardate ragazzi! Guardate un po'! Guardate un po' ragazzi! Sono un amico!
Italy Environmental Minister has promised a new plan to rebuild the south, including flood protection and reforestation may should improvement the early warning system, but critics say this may show a long overdue. In Palermo, the sun broke through the grey sky, illuminating the messy aftermath in the night of Sicilian will not soon forget. We use a hardship, said Maria Conte, the grandmother, whose home was flooded, but we will drive through, support each other and move on. Sicily is beginning to recover, but questions remain. Will the storm the wake-up call is just another serious ignore of warning? As the sun rose over the devastation streets, scenes of resilience began to emerge. Volunteers from neighboring towns arrived the shovels, pumps, and food supplies. In Catania University, extended formed human chain to help clear debris to home of elderly residents. Church bells rang in solidarity of many communities, helped nightly prayers to injure and displaced. One image of West Sicily flag flying proudly over the flood town hall became a national symbol of strength. Local media called at Rome and declared a state of emergency to obtain additional funds in the rescue to rapid reconstruction. Engineers are now installing bridges and roads, health workers to warn the possible communication flow to overflow, thin and standing water. Meteorologists at Weather Italia say a storm system may be reckoning the residual rains and extended to continue for several more days. The ground is standing with the water. Warning climatologist Dr. Elena Rossi even tell additional rainfall could cause new floods and landslides. Environmental activists are calling this storm a wake-up call. This is not just a random error, said Lucia Marinel of Climate Italia. This is the result of decades of neglecting environmental policy of urban planning. We must change now. International support has begun to arrive at the form of offer assistance from the European Union of neighboring countries. Italian celebrities, soccer players and Pope have been experiencing this solidarity. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in the several regions, mobilized rescue workers and deployed to army to aid the evacuation efforts. Civil Protection Authority have urged people in the affected areas to remind cautions to need official warning to forecast in coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in affected areas and presented their solidarity with the victims and pledged government support to reconstruction efforts. This is a national emergency and we are working closely with the local authorities to ensure the safety of all residents, she said. Climate experts warn that such extreme weather events become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, is particularly vulnerable in the affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, property, maintained infrastructure, and urban explosion into flood-prone areas is exact button the impact of the recent storms. dramatic turn of events Sicily finds itself if those in unprecedented storm as nature unleashed any fury upon the picturesque Italian island. We burst of the exclusive coverage and mythological spectacle deletion the impact of communities, infrastructure and the environment. As the storm approached Sicily, among the clouds gathering hilding the tempest to unparalleled proportions. Coastal area forced to onslaught the fierce winds and torrential rains leading the widespread flooding in challenging conditions to both residents to emergency service. Our on-the-ground reported paint a vivid picture to havoc wreaked by the storm. The city of Palermo was transformed into rivers and water levels served submerged cars and tested to resilience to floodedness. The historic architecture withstood the test time to the faces of relentless onslaught of the wind of rain. Throughout the island communities are grappling with the power outage and the storm force caused significant damage to electrical infrastructure. Emergency shelters have been opened to provide refuge to those displaced by the storm.
Porta via il negozio qua, adesso porta via macchine e tutto.
Coastal town in rural village in Sicily have experienced some of the worst damage. The agriculture sector, which is crucial in the island economy, have been hit hard, with the fields and cars destroyed in the rising waters. Landslides have cut off aces of several mountain regions, complicating rescue efforts. The situation remains fluid, with the emergency crew working around the clock to respond to new incidents and then arise. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern region of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, burst their banks and inundate towns and villages. The latest episode of flooding have left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with the thousands of people evacuated from their home. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po and the Rio, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency service to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation have been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads and insulated communities. Authorities estimated damage running into millions of euros. Meteorologists attribute the storm in a clash in a humid Mediterranean air with a cold front northern front, creating a supercell system capable of relaxing extreme energy over the short period. Social media exploded with the dramatic footage of hail bouncing the historic Prague streets, resembling the ice rivers and residents walking through the water to reach safety. Authorities urged citizens to remain indoors, and an emergency crew working throughout the night to clear roads to restore electricity. By evening, Sicily town more scarce the storm approached trees, flooded streets and damaged homes, several stark remind of nature's unpredictable power. Residents' capacity returned to assess the destruction, capturing haunting image of Mediterranean island under assault from the elements. In the Ostia, a coastal suburbs of Rome, wake up to 2-meter high crashed onto safe road, damaged several beach establishments that had already been waked by previous storm. Climatologist Dr. Alexandra Conte and La Supercella University noted that the storm reflects one alert trend. Italy is experiencing increasingly severe weather conditions due to climate instability, she said. Warmers say the more humid air contributed. The storm that used to occur once a decade but now happen every few months. Exhausted residents took the streets and saw mud-broken glass and broken branches scattered across a once bustling boulevard. Cleanup crews worked tirelessly as the city slowly returned to life, but memories of the storm lingered. Rome is strong, said a resident near the Pentagon as she washed water from the duster, but the nature reminds who was both. A sudden violent hailstorm struck Rome, Italy, covering part of the capital in ice and causing severe disruption to daily life. The storm, which erupted late in the afternoon, estimated both residents and tourists with the intensity transformed the eternal city into the unreal winter scene in the middle of autumn. According to Italy's Severe Protection Agency, hailstorm the size of walnuts fell continuously for about 20 minutes, damaged vehicles, shattered windows and returned through outdoor restoring avoid. Emergency service prevented hundreds of rescue requests, particularly in central and northern districts like Perilli, Prati and Flaminio, where roads flooded instantly. The traffic came to complete standstill. Video posted online showed vehicles plowing through the thick layer of hail and pedestrians seek shelters on the sidewalks and subway station away. Local residents Gianni Ganti, caught in the storm on her way home, said it was like a blizzard. I could believe this was Rome.